All right, good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of October 8th, 2020 is called to order. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the Los Angeles County Health Department, the Design Review Board meeting is being conducted virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is also being streamlined online on the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Design Review Board agendas are also available online by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of the decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The appeal application is also available online. Chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Smith? Board Member Smith?
Here.
Thank you. Board Member Welch?
Present.
We would like to also welcome at this time our newest board member, Mr. Caro Minas. Board Member Minas? I believe that he's having technical difficulties and he will be back online in just a moment. And meanwhile, Chairman Simonian.
Present.
In terms of a report regarding posting of the agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on October 5th, 2020. Approval of the minutes. These would be the minutes from August the 27th, 2020. The three board members, Board Member Smith, Welch, and Chair Simonian were all present. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of August the 27th?
So moved.
Thank
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Welch and Ms. Smith. And I would assume that in terms of a roll call, Board Member Smith. Since you seconded, I would assume that that is a yes. Board Member Welch?
Yes.
And then Chair Simonian.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up item on the agenda is oral communication. These are limited to items not a part of this agenda. I have no oral communication callers at this time, so we will pass on that. Next up is board commission member comments. If anyone would like to make a comment, although staff would have an announcement as well, so if the board does not have any comments.
Well, I wanted to take this opportunity and welcome Mr. Minas to the board. We look forward to working with you. It's going to be a pleasure to collaborate with you.
Well, thank you, Chair Simonian. That's a great segue into what I was going to just say, that Mr. Caro Minas comes to us as a longtime president of Applied Earth Sciences. He has a bachelor's and a master's in civil engineering. He sits on a number of nonprofits and has been an active member of Glendale, both in terms of the Armenian Professional Society, member of the Armenian Engineers and Scientists of America, and a board member of the Armenian Society of Los Angeles. So we definitely will look forward to having him on our board for his geological and civil engineering expertise. So welcome, Mr. Minas. Yes, and forgive us, it looks like there's some difficulty. Yeah, 1 second. And with that, why don't I continue and I'll get you that contact information. But meanwhile, Yes, thank you. Okay, great, thanks. And which leads us to the next item on today's agenda, which would be old business. There are no cases. And we do have 2 cases on tonight's agenda for under new business. And I would like to turn the meeting over to Ani Garibian, who is making her debut here in front of the Design Review Board in regards to a mural. So please, Ms. Garibian.
Good evening and thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Grabian.
Thank you.
And 1 second, allow me to, she does have a PowerPoint presentation, so 1 second.
Okay, I think I see everyone now.
Oh, great. And Mr. Minas is able now to,
Yeah, finally. Sorry, I tried to join, but it said the meeting is canceled or delayed. So we just, anyways, I got it.
good, well, great. Thank you. And you missed our introduction to you and our warm welcome from Chair Simonian, so.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ms. Grabian.
Thank you. This is case number PDR 2011623 for the project site located at 2523 Honolulu Avenue. The project site is a 13,800 square feet interior lot located in the C2 zone, Height District 1. Originally developed in 1949, the site is rectangular shaped with 100 feet of frontage on Honolulu Avenue. The lot features a 5,050 square foot, 1-story, multi-tenant commercial building. The applicant is proposing, excuse me, a 43 feet long and 15.5 feet tall mural on the building's east facade as shown in the green in this slide. The mural design consists of a human, animals, landscape, imagery, and a mixture of monochrome and color, and will not feature any letters, numbers, or symbols bearing a commercial or advertising message. The mural will be hand-painted with acrylic paint over 2 coats of exterior acrylic primer. 2 coats of anti-graffiti sealant will be applied to ensure durability. The mural is consistent with the required 6 standards that the board needs to ensure the mural meets. The standards are: mural shall not contain any letters, numbers, or symbols that constitute any form of advertisement or commercial message. Mural shall not contain any obscenity. Mural shall not detract from the architecture of the site or surrounding areas. Mural shall not cause the removal of required landscaping. Mural must be durable and capable of being well maintained. And mural shall be located on existing walls. We did not receive any comments for this mural, just questions. So staff would recommend approval of this project with the 6 standards that the board needs to ensure the mural meets. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions if you need. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Board members, do we have any questions for staff?
None for me.
I do.
Board Member Welsh. I'm sorry, Board Member Smith, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Chair. I think that this mural is especially appropriate now, considering the situation in Artsakh and Azerbaijan. The mural looks absolutely like a vast improvement on a blank wall. My question, and I'm not sure if there's anyone who can answer it here, is to tell us the story of the mural, who the portrait is of, what the birds are and what they represent and the flowers. I can sort of guess, but I'm just guessing. So I'm very curious to learn about what the story is in the mural.
Yes, Board Member Smith, the applicant is available to answer those questions, but I would like to take a moment right now just to interject and to briefly update the Design Review Board on the mural issue. Currently, all murals within the city have to go through the Design Review Board, and the Design Review Board is charged with ensuring that the 6 conditions that were read by Ms. Garibian are being met in order to approve a particular mural. Just recently, actually, City Council had discussed the mural review by the Design Review Board and had directed staff to make a series of amendments. These amendments would include having murals go to the Arts and Culture Commission for review. There was also quite a bit of discussion in regards to the First Amendment rights, because currently the First Amendment requires that all signage, and that would include murals in this case, would be content neutral. So the board, and I'm going to bring up my notes as well, all city regulations have to be content neutral and viewpoint neutral. You can regulate the time, place, and manner for murals, but you would not be able to comment on or regulate the content of murals. So we would just like to make sure that any type of discussion that you have today, if it's of interest and you're just wishing to know the background of the mural, then obviously you're more than welcome to go ahead and ask the applicant. But you would not be able to base your decision on the content of the mural today. That would be limited in scope in regards to the standards that are applicable, and just make note of it that in the upcoming amendments, these amendments were presented to the Planning Commission last night during their regular meeting, and are going to also be introduced to City Council as scheduled on October the 27th. And per recommendations by our city attorney's office, the restriction on letters, numbers, and images is going to be struck out. Murals will not be able to be used as advertisement for the tenant on site, but there will not be a prohibition, because when you start regulating letters, numbers, and symbols, then it becomes a discussion on the content, which we have to remain content neutral. The same with the condition that murals be compatible with the existing architecture or the overall, and I'm going to say that murals need to be architecturally compatible. That particular standard is also going to be recommended for elimination in the upcoming amendments. So just to briefly give an update to the Design Review Board on those topics, so that you are limited in terms of your discussion and the standards that would apply.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Board Member Smith, I did not forget about your question. I think we'll certainly ask the applicant to, enlighten us on some of these factors pertaining and limiting the conversation to what staff just recommended. So if I could understand this correctly, of the 6 requirements that we have currently, 2 will most probably be stricken moving forward. One was that compatibility with architectural style or context, and the other one being numbers, symbols, etc.
Correct. The first standard being the letters, the numbers, letters, and symbols, that particular phrase will be eliminated. The rest of the standard that prohibits any type of advertisement will remain. And then the condition regarding the architectural compatibility requirement will be eliminated altogether.
And we previously had some murals that were presented to this board, some of it in the Rancho area. Were those appealed, and did this discussion kind of come about from those discussions, from those appeals, or was this kind of happening at the same time? Just out of curiosity.
Well, that's going to be coming back to the board sometime in the relatively near future.
I see.
But I believe these rules were in place at that time.
They-
So
they
this
were.
This isn't based on anything.
I
that's
see.
happened.
So just based on just city protocol, it's now gone through the planning commission. There's been further color added to it, so to say, and now we have a little more concise background and guidelines. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. So then perhaps then this might be the best time to really introduce the applicant and have the applicant walk us through the mural. Go ahead, sir. Or ma'am, I'm not sure who the applicant is at the moment because I don't have it in front of me.
Good evening. My name is Arsen Hovhannisyan.
Welcome and good evening.
Can you hear me?
We could hear you just fine.
So like I said, both myself and the artist, Nicholas Freeman, who's also present, we have prepared statements. It's going to take us less than 5 minutes to go over them. And I think that will address a lot of the where is this coming from and where we want to go with this. So I'm open to going about it either way. We can have Nicholas start, or I'm happy to start.
Well, since you're on at the moment, it might make sense just to continue this dialogue, and then whenever you think it's the right time, you could kind of pass it along to the artist. And the artist will just
Very
have
good.
to introduce themselves.
Very good. So thank you for this opportunity to be speaking to the city and to the community of Glendale. Growing up as a child, murals were always larger than life to me. They captured much of my thoughts, imagination, brought art and beauty into my life, which affected my thinking and left me a better person as a result. My name is Arsen Hovhannisyan. I am a cardiologist, soon to be in my 10th year of service in the community of Glendale. We are relocating my office to 2523 Honolulu in Montrose, which will be our permanent home. And the building has a large eastern wall that at the moment is blank and has a fair amount of street visibility. Nicholas Freeman, a world-class artist and muralist, and I propose an educational mural that we hope will better our community. Let me start by asking, what do the common crane, the partridge, the quail, the swallow, the apricot, and the poplar tree have in common? Where do they come from? Are they as important today as they were 100 years ago? Are they of cultural and historic significance? Do our children, members of our community and other communities, know about these historic beings? And can we put them together in a fun and educational mural in a way that is non-offensive and will beautify our neighborhood? You know, I appreciate the first question I had. My heart goes out to the people in Artsakh, but we conceived of this mural a long time before then, so they're unrelated. Driving between the hospitals of Glendale, listening to the Komitas quartets over the last year, learning about the birds and the trees of Vartapet Komitas, got me thinking about these subjects. What can we say about Komitas? He is a musical genius who has arranged, composed, and preserved much of the traditional Armenian folk music known today. What are the values that I hope will resonate through this mural? And this kind of ties back to me as a cardiologist. What do I take from Vartapet Komitas and say, this man is affecting me and hopefully the community at large in a positive way? I really want a certain set of values to resonate from this. They are compassion, sincerity, kindness, humility, respect for animal and plant life, an ongoing interest in folk music, an ongoing interest in art, and a small limited glimpse into Armenian history that I think will culturally enrich our neighborhood.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive introduction. I think it gives us a good idea as to what you have in mind and what the idea behind the mural is. So thank you for that. perhaps we could move on to the artist and get some feedback as well, and then see if the board members have any additional questions.
Hello,
Yes, you're on the air. If you would please state your name for the record.
my name is Nicholas Freeman. I'm a relatively new resident to Los Angeles, a few years over. I came from New York and originally from Chicago. And to speak to the process of creating murals and my own learning process within a city and a new city, I do love this process because for me it's on the ground level, and I get to have conversations while I get to create the work. And I often in my studio work and in recent commissions, I had a commission by the city of Santa Monica and the City Council of Westwood. Both were cultural appreciation based pieces of Persian design, those specifically. I myself have no Persian background, but to be able to work within another culture's set of color theory, of history, it's always been a very interesting and rewarding process. And it's something that, as a muralist on the ground, I have no escape. The neighborhood will come up and speak to me, and it's a learning process for me as I get to learn about this specific history. And it's a wonderful exchange. I think it's one of the best things of mural work is that it's a conversation, and it's as opposed to it is a static image, but it has that opportunity to grow conversations about its subjects. And I think as a form of public art, there is no more important thing to have than that sort of conversation, because then the appreciation of the work only continues and grows. I get to learn, the community gets to learn, and it's been a very rewarding process so far, and always has.
Oh, well, thank you for that background and color. I know, as Board Member Smith asked earlier, I'm curious as well. And of course, we're not going to base any of our approval of this or other factors on the meaning, but we got a glimpse as to kind of the historic and cultural significance of the different components of the mural. But maybe a minute or two of just some more detail as to the meaning, I would greatly appreciate as well, because I'm super curious and would love to see how it all fits in. And I'm not sure if the artist or Mr. Hovhanessian is the best to describe that.
With all due respect, I want to let the meaning be in the eye of the beholder, so to say. I don't want to offer my own interpretation of these things. I think what I want to do with this is get people thinking about these things, because to me, when I think of these things, they generate a set of values that, to me, makes me feel good about myself at the end of the day. And it's just, I was 43 years of age when I learned both the Armenian and English interpretation of all of these names. I didn't know the chinar tree is the poplar tree. I learned that. And so my hope is with this mural, people at a much younger age than myself can get to know, what I think is not necessarily just what I think, but what is an important part of Armenian folk culture. And so what interpretation will an individual offer when looking at this? I think the beauty of good art is it engages the audience. And I would like to leave it at that, unless Nicholas wants to add something else.
Briefly, I would just like to specifically answer and say that the symbolism, although it is open and will always be open to particular interpretations, the elements were drawn from Komitis's Western translations of Armenian folk songs. The scenes and the music that he dealt with were a celebration of a humble rural life, and a celebration of natural landscape. And each of the elements, each of the specific types of birds, are drawn, are taken from lyrics that he transcribed from folk songs. Now these are specific, and to what Arsene said, I believe go much further beyond that specific symbolism, and it is in my mind foremost. It's a beautiful landscape, and it's something that when I was choosing the palette for the colors, it was something that I wanted very much to mix into the mountains around. I looked at a number of Armenian painters and drew from their color palettes to have that relatable. And I did a number of interviews with Armenian musicologists and was able to learn quite a bit about what his process of taking the music of his homeland and how he transcribed it into Western understanding, I think is a perfect example of what I'm trying to do through this particular work.
Well said. We appreciate symbolism, and I think we all pretty much have a very different interpretation, but I would tell you at the end of the day, it's probably all going to circle around and end up not too far apart from one another. So thank you so much for the introduction, and with that, we'll see if there's any callers that have called in. Is there anybody on the line?
No, Commissioner, or let's just say Chair Simonian, there are no callers for this item.
Very good. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the public portion. Board Member Smith, would you like to start us off on this?
Thank you, Chair Simonian. I don't have very much to say. I think it's absolutely lovely. As I said, it's a vast improvement on a blank wall. I was curious to get a little bit more information, but of course I can deduce my own ideas about it. I think it would be a lovely addition to the neighborhood, or any neighborhood, especially in a commercial area, and I wholeheartedly am in favor of it.
Thank you. Board Member Welsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to add my welcome to Board Member Minas and also Ms. Caribbean. Speaking to the project, I concur with Board Member Smith. I think it's art is always an improvement over a blank wall, so I will applaud that. And I really appreciate the applicants, investing in a public benefit. I think it's a wonderful gesture. I think the goal of opening it up for interpretation and being a source of parents to come and educate their kids, I think is a noble gesture. And I really can't speak to the art. I think it's lovely. I think the color palette is nice, and I think it is evocative of different things to different people. So I will add my approval to it.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. I echo my board members, and I also would like to thank Mr. Ovanesian and also Mr. Freeman for really bringing this opportunity to our city. I think this is going to be a great learning experience for me as well. I look forward to taking my children to the site and really having them look at it, and for us to get a better glimpse and a better understanding as to the symbolism behind it. I think we've, as an Armenian, I've always grown up with these symbols and the folk songs and whatnot. You hear about it, but how much do I really know about the true symbolism of the specific, popular tree or the other symbols here? I think is all to be interpreted and really learned. So art is interactive, and art is very important. And I think these kind of moments do come around once in a blue moon, and we're in the middle of it, and it's very appropriate that it's happening at the moment with what's happening in Artsakh. So as Board Member Smith brought up, was this just because of that, and as the applicant said, no, it was planned a long time ago, but it is very symbolic as to the rebirth and what's been happening for thousands of years in that little piece of, land called Armenia. So with that, I concur.
Mr. Simone?
Yes?
Mr. Minos also?
Yeah. So with that, I conclude my portion of it, and I apologize, Mr. Minas. Now we're going to move to you. Usually I go last, but since we've been doing these on our own for so long, I've
Used to it.
forgot that there was a fourth board member. So even though we introduced you in the beginning and you missed it, I had a warm welcome for you. So Mr. Minas, welcome to our board, and you have the floor.
Sorry about the delay to join the meeting, but I finally made it. I have to also confess that I am in favor of history, culture, and art. And part of my upbringing was in art. And I have grown up with the music of Komitas all my life. And the folk songs of Komitas, they're unparalleled. And it's just such a pleasure to listen to each and every work of Komitas, and I would really welcome the introduction of this artwork in the city of Glendale. And I hope that many people passing by this wall will be curious enough to stop and ask questions and learn some history and art from this demonstration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minas. And again, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, with that, staff had some conditions, which I think we went over, but the staff want to quickly just remind us of the minor conditions that were presented to us?
Sure. So these are the 6 standards. Mural shall not contain any letters.
No, we already know that.
Those are the only
Oh, okay.
standards we have.
No, not the standards, the conditions at the bottom of the sheet.
The conditions repeat those standards.
I see.
So we just make them conditions.
Very good. So I think they're pretty self-explanatory since we've already gone through them. Are any comments from the board members, or does anyone want to make a motion?
Chair Simonian, in light of the recommendations made by the city attorney, I would amend those conditions of approval and strike out the letters, numbers, and symbols reference that's in the first condition.
Okay.
And then also eliminate the condition, although this is still currently in code, but this has been found to be not consistent with the First Amendment rights, so.
Right, that's kind of where I was going, is, should we kind of amend it and carve it in such a way that it's going to be compliant moving forward, which is probably a good idea. Okay.
That would be my suggestion, yes.
Okay. Board members, is everyone clear how the guidelines have been adjusted over time and what they will most probably end up being pertaining to the striking of the 2 of the conditions or modifying them?
Correct, that would be modifying the first and then eliminating the condition in regards to architectural compatibility, which would be consistent with the city attorney's recommendations for the upcoming amendments to be heard by city council on October the 27th.
Okay.
So just to be clear, the packet that I have has only 4 conditions, and I think what we're talking about is removing condition number 2 of those 4 conditions, correct?
Oh, and I apologize because it appears that the conditions that are on page 3 of your staff report, there are only 4 conditions, and the second one is in reference to the letters, numbers, and symbols. So the other remaining 3, actually the 3, so conditions number 1, 3, and 4 would remain as is. And condition number 2 would be modified to read that the mural shall not constitute any form of advertising or commercial message.
And this leaves open for a future hearing to allow the board to define the word obscenity, so that will be very interesting.
Oh, that's going to be a fun evening. Okay,
So on that basis, Mr. Chair, I'll move the motion to approve with those conditions.
thank
I
you.
second it.
That was a motion made by Board Member Welch and a second by Board Member Smith. And in terms of a roll call, Board Member Smith,
Aye.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Board Member Minas,
Yes,
and Chair Simonian.
Yes,
The motion passes to approve with conditions 4-0.
thank you. Our next case is PDR 2008-374. And our case planner is Ms. Pruitt, who will be joining us. Does staff need a minute or two to set up?
Yes, Ms. Cassandra Pruitt is going to be making the presentation for the next item on the agenda, which is a new single-family home. She will be providing or presenting actually from her WebEx at home, from her home office. And so I would like to turn now, and as I start sharing the screen, and if you don't mind just waiting one moment, please, while I bring that up. Give me 1 second. All right. Thank you. Yes, the PowerPoint is up.
Wonderful.
Good evening, board members, Chair Simonian, and members of the public. I'm Cassandra Pruitt. I'm the case planner for the project proposed at 1235 Winchester Avenue. Next slide, please. The proposal includes demolishing the existing house and building a new one. The existing one-story, 1,340 square feet craftsman-style house was built in 1924. The house does not appear to be a historic resource because it is not an exemplary representation of the craftsman style. It was further altered through the addition of asbestos siding, and the property is not associated with any people or events significant in the history of the city. The proposed new house is 3,267 square feet, 2 stories with an attached garage. The site contains a relatively flat lot and is zoned R1-1, which is a designation for low density residential floor area ratio district 1. Next slide, please. The house is located in the Grandview neighborhood on Winchester Avenue between Glenwood Road and West Kenneth Road. And houses within 300 feet of the subject property are modest in size at an average of 1,594 square feet. They're 1 story. They have detached garages at the rear, and they're mostly in the Spanish colonial revival or minimal traditional styles. They have an average front setback of 27 square feet. Next slide, please. These images are a few representative examples of typical houses on the street. Next slide, please. I will now go through the design analysis for the proposed project, which is pictured on this slide here. I'll talk about the site planning, the mass and scale, and design and detailing. And I'd like you to notice the following items on this slide, which I will refer to in more detail on the following slides. The first, next please. The first is the monumental 2-story entryway. Next, please. The tall attached garage. Next, please. The large attic space spanning the entire house. Next, please. The faux dormer windows. Next, please. The overscaled fascia boards and moldings. Next, please. And the sparse landscape plan. Next, please. In terms of site planning, the project proposed 25-foot front setback and the building footprint and location are consistent with the neighborhood pattern. The attached garage, however, is inconsistent with the neighborhood pattern, where all houses within 300 feet have detached garages at the rear. The only two houses that have attached garages are at the end of the block over 400 feet to the east. The proposed landscape plan consists entirely of turf, with 1 new bush and 6 new cypress trees at the front facade. The existing landscaping to remain includes loquat trees along the interior property lines. The proposed landscaping, therefore, lacks variety and does not complement the project. Staff recommends redesigning the garage location to be consistent with the neighborhood pattern and redesigning the landscape plan to add variety and complement the project. Next, please. The massing and scale of the project are incompatible with neighborhood pattern. The house is twice the size of the neighborhood average, both in total floor area and in stories and height. The project includes a 2-story, nearly 28-foot-high monumental entryway, a 20-foot-high garage, and large attic space nearly 6 feet tall across the entire house and the garage. Other than the front facade being set back from the 2-story entry porch, few design features have been utilized to minimize the mass and scale of the project in order to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Therefore, staff recommends redesigning the project to address these issues. Next slide, please. Thank you. The design and detailing of the project are generally consistent and of high quality materials. The faux dormer windows, however, are faced with plaster and result in degrading the design quality. Further, several design features, such as the fascia boards, molding, and monumental entryway, emphasize the building's monumentality rather than work to minimize it and bring it closer to being consistent with the neighborhood context. So staff recommends reducing the scale of design elements to minimize the sense of monumentality and to remove the faux dormers. Next, please. Oh, thank you. As a note, several public comments were received expressing opposition to the project, and those comments were forwarded to the board earlier today. I also received a telephone call this afternoon from a man stating his address as 1222 Winchester, and he stated that he is okay with the construction. As demonstrated in this presentation, staff believes the project does not comply with the city's comprehensive design guidelines, and therefore staff recommends it be returned to the project team for redesign. Specific conditions recommended are to reduce the mass and scale of the project, relocate the garage, redesign the landscape plan, reduce the scale of design details, eliminate the use of faux dormers, reduce the height of the entryway, and ensure to use recessed windows. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
If I could just add, the Glendale Historical Society also submitted a letter questioning the demolition of the existing house, which they propose that they think it's a historic resource.
Okay.
We would also like to add there were a number of letters and emails that were received from the public, and those emails and letters were actually forwarded to the Design Review Board members for your consideration as part of the project.
Yes, we are in receipt of those, so thank you for forwarding them. Thank you. So, do we have any questions for staff from the board members? I'll take the silence as an, go ahead, Mr. Minas.
Oh, yeah, okay. I had the opportunity to visit the site today, and I agree that the current mass, as it's designed, is not compatible with the rest of the
Mr. Minas? Mr. Minas?
neighborhood structure. Yes.
Well, first, and we appreciate it because this is your first session. I think what we'll do is first, as far as protocol, we're going to have the applicant present, and then there'll be members of the public that will call in with their thoughts as well. And then once we close the public portion, we could then, as board members, start to discuss the project. However, since you do have the floor, if you have any specific questions for staff, now is the time to ask. but we should really let the applicant and the public first speak.
That's fine. I don't have a question from the staff.
Okay, wonderful. Board members, I believe we have no more questions, so with that, we'll go ahead and open the public portion, and we'll have the applicant introduce themselves and take us through the project. And it looks like there is a bit of technical difficulties, but we'll get it resolved in the next moment or two.
The applicant, forgive us, we actually have the applicant listed on the project plans as Vardon Kasemian. And I believe that there is a Sona Sarukian who is going to speak on their behalf.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Sona Sarukian?
Yes.
Are you speaking on behalf of the applicant Vardon Kasemian?
Me and Barton are here together.
You're together. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So please state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes to present your case.
Okay, hello everybody. Case number is PDR 2011623 for project site located at 1235 Winchester Avenue. The project site is a 13,360 square foot lot on the western side of Winchester Avenue, north of Glenwood Road, located in an R1 floor area district 1. The full width of the front property measures 80 feet wide and total length of 167 feet. The proposal is to demolish an existing one-story craftsman style house that has been modified, and to construct a new two-story 3,267 square foot dwelling with new attached two-car garage, while maintaining the exterior-interior block wall and very dense row of mature citrus trees that are all approximately 30 feet in height. This will provide a privacy buffer between adjacent properties. In terms of site planning, the new single-family dwelling is designed to address the minimum and average setback requirements per zoning code and is considerate of the prevailing setbacks on the street. An extra 5-foot front setback in addition to the prevailing setback is provided to allow openness towards the street. The proposed landscaping will significantly exceed the code required minimum and complement the appearance of the house. But the landscape design will be revised to reduce the turf, along with adding more of the native plants for low water use. In regards to mass and scale, the predominant block pattern features one-story homes. However, just outside the 300-foot radius on adjacent streets like Justin, Western, and Kenneth, there are several two-story dwellings. Therefore, the proposed two-story dwelling is appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood. Most of the existing homes on the block have detached garages located to the rear of the property. However, the proposed attached garage is integrated with the overall proposed structure. The driveway design proposes permeable paving system to minimize the amount of paved areas in the front. More attached garages can be located over the 400-foot radius to the east, near Kenneth and the adjacent block. The proposed dormer roofs are compatible with the overall style of the dwelling. The use of high-pitched roof is consistent throughout the design and will provide an area for mechanical equipment. There is a variety of different roof styles and heights found throughout the block. Therefore, the proposed roof is appropriate with the neighborhood. Standard floor-to-ceiling heights of 10 feet on the first floor and 9 feet on the second floor are proposed. While the floor area is within the floor area requirements of the subject zone, the proposed building does look larger in comparison to the surrounding neighborhood, which features modestly sized homes. The subject lot is twice the width of the other lots, and the proposal of 2 stories is to remediate the area of landscaping while using the FAR requirements. The purpose is to create an architecturally pure residential style home amongst the existing dominant Spanish Mission Revival homes within the surrounding neighborhood. The proposal is calling for an eclectic approach to the design guidelines, which otherwise produce a rigid Spanish style or craftsman style repetition of homes across Glendale. So therefore, introducing a new character amongst all those will seem incompatible. This makes it difficult and pretty much impossible to incorporate new innovative approaches to the design guidelines. The two-story mass is uncharacteristic of the block because there are no two-story dwellings in the 300-foot radius. Although the proposal does not match the surrounding building fabric, the existing mature trees planted around the interior property lines will provide buffer that will screen off the building's mass. The surrounding neighborhood features mix of architectural styles, with Spanish Mission style being most dominant. In terms of design and detailing, the new dwelling's period revival style, along with its natural color palette for the exterior, create visual interest and will introduce a new period revival presence on the block. Characteristic to the architectural style, the proposal includes a flat facade, symmetrical features repeating horizontally against the flat surface. Cones at the corners and dentils around the fenestrations provide the aesthetic purpose, accentuate the outside corners of the structure, and create modulation. A distinctive central two-story portico that denotes the doorway adds sophistication to the exterior and adds to curb appeal. The proposal incorporates French neoclassical elements and Beaux Arts elements with more modest execution. The new windows will be vinyl nail-on frames with recessed glass and an appropriate combination of thick and casement windows. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. I would like to thank everybody for taking their time out of the day to see us and all the new proposals.
Thank you very much. Does the other applicant as well have any thoughts, or does that conclude applicant's holistic presentation?
I do want to add some things to this. Also,
And I'm sorry, you're gonna have to state your name for the record, please.
yes, Vartank Semyon.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify some things from staff as far as the landscaping. It would be nice to get a more clarification on what would be required to redesign it, or the conditions for the redesign on the landscaping. There is a few things I would also like to note. The high-pitch roof design is part of the actual design style, and we actually kept it off at 28 feet, which we believe is the height limit there, and that's what causes the height to look so high, but it's actually a very high-pitched roof. And some of the other things I like to make notes about is the fact that our lot is also double the size of all the lots around the area, and we've taken consideration to set back from the front 5 more feet where the building line is from the left side of the building, which I believe is 12 feet setback, and then on the right side of the building is the garage, which is only a single-story garage with just a tall roof.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be all for now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Stay with us. If there is any members of the public that would come out and speak, you're going to have an opportunity for a rebuttal at the end, so just hang with us. And we're going to move on to the general public. Are there any speakers that have called in on this?
Yes, Chair Simonian, we have a number of callers. The first one being Nancy Oshima. Ms. Nancy Oshima, you are on the air.
Yes, hello, good evening. I'm Nancy Oshima, and I'd like to thank the Design Review Board members and staff of the Planning Department for your review of this and other rebuild projects with the understanding of the importance of preserving historic character neighborhood. We live in Glendale, which we have enjoyed doing for many years. My husband and I bought our home on Winchester in 2002, and we've done a lot of work in the house. stripping woodwork, uncovering a fireplace, just enjoying the character of not only our home, but all the homes on the street. Winchester is a very narrow, quiet street with all one-story homes built mostly in the 20s and 30s. And the current home that's this location is also a very small craftsman-style house with the proposed replacement, as you've heard, planned at over 3,200 square feet and 2 stories. It's placed near the front of the lot. It's been pointed out that it is a large lot, and there's more than half the lot behind the house. So based on this design, we don't see a reason why it should something this large be this close to the street, basically looming over the rest of the street. Our objective is just that. It's the mass, the scale, and the design all seem to make the structure out of proportion and incompatible with the rest of. Now, we welcome new families in the neighborhood and that there's time and families move in, they'll need to make some to meet their needs. However, we ask that the board reject this design and work with our new neighbors to design a one-story home compatible with on the street. I'd like to thank you all for considering the neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
The next caller is Mr. Charles Bush. Mr. Charles Bush, you are on the air.
Hi, thank you. My name is Charles Bush. I live on Winchester Avenue. Thank you to the Design Review Board and Chairman Simonian for allowing us to comment. My family and I have lived on Winchester since 2008, and we chose the home because of its character, the location, and the charm of the neighborhood. We have 2 young kids in elementary school nearby, and over the last 12 years, we've built a great community with our neighbors on this particular block. We are really excited to have new neighbors at 1235 Winchester, especially owners who plan to make improvements to their property and build on their property. And we look forward to welcoming the new owners and their family to the neighborhood. Our concerns about the design are as follows. One is the overall size is so incongruous relative to the other homes on the block. Even if you consider the fact that it's I believe a 13,000 square foot lot, that actually allows them to build back a little bit more. So the overall size is not consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. The style is completely different from the rest of the neighborhood, which consists mostly of Spanish colonial revival and kind of minimal traditional styles and craftsmen. And so the second thing is the proposed design is 2 stories and really looms over the sidewalk. It is a very muscular design that really does not fit with the neighborhood at all. There are no 2-story houses within 300 feet of this location. The ones that were mentioned actually are that are outside the zone are actually quite different. They're more in keeping with the Spanish revival style. The proposed house is 3,200 square feet, which is twice the size of the neighborhood average. Other owners in the area have built additional floors that farther back from lower floors. So they've built back, or there are a few homes on Kenneth that have set back the higher floor so it doesn't loom over the rest of over the street and the rest of the homes. Finally, the landscaping is composed of turf and a few bushes and cypress trees. It really lacks variety and is inconsistent with the drought-tolerant landscaping that's common in the neighborhood. Finally, I'd just like to say that in 12 years we've lived here, we've seen lots of neighbors do redesigns and new construction. We've
That was the time limit, by the way. So if you would just wrap it up in the next 10 seconds or so.
Yeah, we think the owners can build a home that realizes their dreams and also takes into consideration the style of the neighborhood and the neighbors who've been here. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for taking the time to call in. We appreciate it. Next speaker, please.
Yes, the next speaker is Jesse Perez Fraga. Yes, hello, Jesse Perez Fraga, you are on the air.
Oh, hi, my name is Jesse Perez Fraga, and I want to thank the review board for taking the time to hear my thoughts on this matter. I live across the street from 1235 Winchester Avenue, and after looking at the structure skeleton that is temporarily in place, showing the intended size they wish to build, I realized that if they get approval to build this home, the only thing I'll be able to see when I look towards the front of my property from my backyard or driveway will be the massive structure that they hope to erect. I've always enjoyed the sunset or beautiful palms blowing in the wind, and I'll no longer be able to see any of that. The house they intend to build will tower over most of the rest of the neighborhood, making them appear very insignificant. And at the same time, placing windows so high that it'll provide views of quite a few of the neighbors' backyards, taken away from the feeling of intimacy and privacy. I also feel the proposed house is very much out of character with their neighborhood. One of the reasons we picked this neighborhood is because of the beautiful historic homes up and down the street, and it would be disappointing if a more modern style starts to develop as a trend in our neighborhood. I look forward to getting to know our new neighbors and very much hope that they get to build a house that suits all their needs, that their family can really enjoy. I just feel like this could be accomplished without imposing a great change on our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, the next speaker is Rabiva Delfino.
It's actually Rebecca Delfino.
Oh, I
I'm
apologize.
Here. Yeah, no worries. Members of the Design Review Board and city staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rebecca Delfino. I live at 1225 Winchester, 2 houses to the south of this project, on the same side of the street. I asked the Design Review Board to deny this application of the proposed project. I have 2 objections. But before I address my objections, I just want to be clear. I'm not opposed to new development. I'm not opposed to new design. I do not object to this applicant constructing a new home on this lot and even making it a larger home. I have no objection to those matters. My objections are specific to the proposal before you. First, I'm opposed to this project because it's 2 stories. It has a massive pitch to the roof. And because it is very close to the property line, even if it's within code, on both sides and to the front, it literally dwarfs everything around it. If built as proposed, I will lose my view of the mountains above Brand Park that I have enjoyed for 27 years. I have lived on this street. But more concerning to me is I will lose all of the privacy in my backyard. From the 2nd story, the occupant will be able to see directly into my backyard and more profoundly into my house. It is just too tall for this space. They do have a large lot. It is not the only large lot on the street. There are other large lots of the same size that have 1-story houses on them. They have sufficient room to build a large home without adding the 2nd story. And because of the 2nd story, because of its scale, this home is totally incompatible with the other homes on this block, which are all single-story. My second objection centers on the design of the home. The facade of the home, its architectural style, the pitch of the roof are entirely out of place and inconsistent with everything else on this block. The existing homes, as has been noted, are Spanish-style, California bungalow, more traditional homes. Although the unique architecture of this home might be appropriate elsewhere in Glendale, perhaps even on a different block, it does not fit here. Finally, as I mentioned, I've lived on this street for 27 years. I've seen a lot of changes to the block and to the street, but one thing has remained constant. It's the thing that attracted me to this block 27 years ago, and it is the trees that line the parkway. The trees are the outstanding feature of this block. It creates a look and feel that is unique to all of the blocks around it. Because this house, as proposed, if built, will tower over these trees, it will undermine and detract from the most outstanding feature of the block and forever change the appearance of this neighborhood. For these reasons, I respectfully request the Design Review Board reject the construction of this project as currently proposed and require the applicant to redesign a proposed project that offers something that will meet the needs of their family, but will also be compatible with the other homes on this block. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Martik Vartanian.
Welcome. If you would state your name for the record.
Martik Vartanian, you're live on the air.
Maybe we could move on to the other speakers and then come back to
Of course.
this speaker.
The next speaker is Ms. Susan Gilmore. Ms. Susan Gilmore, you're live on the air.
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening, board members. I am a 20-year resident of 1236 Winchester Avenue, located directly across the street from the proposed project.
And very quickly, your name for the record.
Susan Gilmore.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for taking the time to join us. Go ahead.
Oh, you're very welcome. Should I start over, or did
No,
you miss?
no, you're doing just fine. We just needed a name for the record, which we got. So go ahead.
Okay. And while I welcome the prospect of new neighbors, I am calling to voice my very strong opposition to the proposed tear down and new construction as currently envisioned. I echo my neighbors' concerns as expressed heretofore in the meeting. I don't feel it necessary to go through all of them. My primary concern is the scale of the project, which is completely incompatible with the one-story residential character of our neighborhood. I have also submitted a letter to the DRB and also signed a petition that was circulated by the neighborhood in opposition to this project. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we are in receipt of comments from the community, and staff has forwarded those to us via email over time. Next speaker.
Yes, the next speaker is Ms. Jessica Hollander. Ms. Jessica Hollander, you are live on the air.
Hello. Thank you to the members of the DRB for taking the time tonight to consider this proposal and for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jessica Hollander. For the record, I live at 1206 Winchester Avenue. I, too, welcome the opportunity to bring new neighbors into our street. My family has only lived here for 4 years, but we absolutely love the neighborhood and the sense of community. I think rather than, as Mrs. Gilmore said, restating any of the previous points that have been made, I will just reiterate my objection to the size and scale of the proposed project. I would also like to point out something that doesn't quite appear in the artist's rendering of the proposal, is that the space in that drawing on either side of the proposed house. At 80 feet wide, this house with the attached garage is almost going to go from property line to property line on either side. So when people have repeatedly used the word looming to describe it, it literally fills the entire lot and is at that height incredibly close to the street. I would also like to offer a different opinion than the first presenter who characterized the architecture of this neighborhood as rigid. I love the historic character of the neighborhood. I think it is something that is just extremely beautiful and unique. And I don't think that the monumental design of this proposed project is an example of sophisticated, eclectic architecture. I think it is something that fits the code, but is not compatible with the neighborhood. Like one of the earlier speakers said, I am not opposed to development. I am not opposed to building a new home and improving the current state of that property. I just think that the proposal as it stands is wildly out of character with our neighborhood, and I urge the board to accept the staff recommendation to send this project back for redesign. One more thing before I forget, regarding the trees. There are trees in the green strip between the street and the sidewalk that, to my understanding, are owned by the city. They're extremely tall palm trees that line
And that
either
was
side.
the time limit, so if you would, just wrap it up in the next 10 seconds, if you would.
Certainly. The current proposal where the attached garage is located will require tearing out one of those old growth palm trees. I would like to not see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Mr. Dan Perrett. Mr. Perrett, you are live on the air.
All right, thank you. Welcome. I would like to say thank you for hearing our comments tonight, the Design Review Board. I am.
Your
I'm not
name,
going to go through the list.
and sir, your name for the record, if you would, before continuing. Just
me.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Dan Perrett.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm not going to go through the litany of the reasons why, as a homeowner on the street of 27 years, we're against this project. We actually welcome new neighbors to the neighborhood, and we're very much in favor of. I am very much in favor of the destruction of the existing property. But again, like most of my other neighbors, we're against the design of the house as it is. We think that it's a privacy issue, an invasion of privacy with a home that size, and for all the reasons that it's been listed by our other neighbors, I want to agree with that 100% and just say that I think that they could redesign the home in such a way that they would have the square footage that they need, but could still do it in a one-story project. And I hope they can find a way to see that for themselves and for all of us as their neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Before we go to the representative of the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association, I would like to call back I believe it's Mr. Martik Vartanian. Martik Vartanian, you are live on the air.
Do you show him as actually being present on our system? Or is he
Martik Vartanian is shown as being on hold, yes.
Are there any more speakers?
The last remaining speaker would be Mr. Philip Keller, representing the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association.
Well, let's go to Mr. Keller, and then we'll come back one more time, and we'll give him a few seconds, and if we don't get him, then we'll just assume we lost him.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Keller, you are live on the air.
Thank you. Hello and good evening, Chairman, board members, and city staff. My name is Philip Keller, and
Good
I'm
evening.
a board member of the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association and serve as its DRB representative. I'd like to speak today about our concerns with 1235 Winchester Avenue. Without repeating what the staff laid out, I'd like to quickly say that we do strongly agree with all of the staff findings in the design analysis section that have deemed this proposal not satisfactory or compatible in the following areas: garage location and driveway, landscape design, building relates to its surroundings, context, scale and proportion, overall design and detailing, entryway, and windows. That is, in our opinion, that's a massive amount of crucial design elements to get wrong on a proposal, and it's very concerning to us. When I look at a new proposal, one of the first things I do is spend time driving the street which the proposal sits in to get a real feel for the potential impact upon the existing neighborhood. And by that I mean its scale, proportion, rhythm, architectural style, siting, the landscaping, and overall integrity of the streetscape of the neighborhood as it exists. And I hope you've all the DRB members have had a chance to do the same for this site. If you had, you'll clearly see that what has already been stated, there's no other two-story homes on this entire block, not any. In all of the 33 homes, even if I count the corner cross-street properties, because they're street frontage on Winchester, all 33 are modestly sized with an average of all those homes of 1,498 square feet. This proposal is 3,267 square feet. That's a staggering 218% larger than the average on the street. That's more than double. That's just not compatible. But what makes the proposal even more concerning is that the applicant is proposing to put all of this square footage mass in a front-loaded two-story home where it is sitting right up front on the front setback of the property line. This just flies in direct contradiction to the city's design guidelines, plain and simple. This is the opposite of what you're supposed to do with a new home design when trying to create some compatibility with the neighborhood. This design isn't even trying. The huge 13,350 square foot lot is flat and all usable. There's plenty of room for the applicant to build a more modestly sized one-story home that pushes back into the lot and better conforms with the existing character of the street. Even if they built the size and scale of the largest existing home, which is 1217 Winchester at 2,522 square feet, they'd still have tons of room for their lovely pool and gracious outside area, or even if they went a few hundred square feet bigger than that. Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association has always encouraged and supported well-designed residential remodels and construction projects, and we very much support this applicant's pursuit of building a dream home. However, we strongly feel that it should be done in a manner that takes into account how the design will impact its neighbors and is more responsible to the spirit of the prevailing scale, massing, and character. We feel strongly that this applicant should explore ways to redistribute the desired square footage within a single-story layout. We therefore respectfully request that this project be returned for redesign. I have no doubt that the town's architect of the project will be able to satisfy their client's desires while presenting a new project that is truly compatible with the neighborhood. Thank you, Chairman, and good evening.
Thank you so very much. So with that, we'll go back to that one last speaker for the third time and see if he's able to join us. If not, we'll move on and close at least this portion of the hearing.
Yes. Martik Vartanian, you are live on the air.
Well, with that silence, we'll assume he's having some technical difficulties or whatnot. There's no more speakers, I take it, correct?
There are no more speakers. The applicant is still on the line. If you have any additional questions, I believe there was also one image that was sent by the applicant. Unfortunately, that was not presented in time as part of the staff review, so let me just show you briefly. And slide. This was the image that was submitted by the applicant to show the neighboring context. So in case he needs to refer to it during his rebuttal, he has 3 minutes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So with that, then we'll go back to the applicant, and I know there was a combination. Would Ksemian, applicant Mr. Ksemian, or the designer like to take us through the rebuttal? We have 3 minutes.
Oh, forgive me. Yes, Ms. Sona Sarukian or Mr. Vardan Kasemian, which of you would
This
like
is
to have the
Vardan.
3 minutes?
This is Vardhan Simeon.
And if you
I
would,
just want to say only 2 comments. One comment is that I feel like the city staff and also some of the local residents kind of have the idea of historical wrong because of the fact that most of these homes in the neighborhood are not historical. They just happen to have all been built around the same time, which is about almost 80 years ago. And one more thing I would like to add is that I don't see how the homeowner's right to have a second story can never be achieved, since every single 2-story home in this neighborhood will get rejected in future. And I think that's going to be all.
Well, thank you for your feedback and thoughts and your rebuttal. Is there anything else you'd like to ask before we close the public portion?
No. Thank you for your time, and it was good to hear from the neighbors, so we know exactly what they want to see, and it'll be great to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you.
Wonderful. If you would, please hang on, though. Do not hang up as the applicant, just hang on. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion. We'll go ahead and open this for discussion. Board Member Welsh, would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say that I applaud staff's efforts here. I am in full agreement with staff's perspective. I think that this design does not at all meet the spirit or the letter of the guidelines. And I think their recommendations are well considered. I would also add that I think that notwithstanding the applicant's perspective, the fact that all of these homes in this neighborhood were all built, around the same time, around over 100 years ago, is exactly what historically means. And I would think that this neighborhood would, I can't opine exactly, but it seems like it would be likely eligible for a historic district, that there'd be sufficient contributing properties in the neighborhood. So to eliminate one of the potential contributors, which I believe this house would be based on what I read in the Historical Society's letter, that consideration should be given by the applicant to try to work within the existing structure. As many speakers noted, there's plenty of property here. There's easy ways for them to work with a design that can considerably expand the size of the house without overdoing it on the massing and the scale, which is just too monumental. It's incompatible with the neighborhood. So that would be the only thing that I would recommend to add to the conditions or the considerations for the return for redesign, that they work to try to incorporate the existing house as best they can into the design for a new project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Board Member Smith.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chairman. I have a few questions, and some are based on even what was said in this hearing. I'm not able to move just a second. I have some notes. 1 second. Okay. So the lead agency, which is the City of Glendale, seems to be proposing a categorical exemption for this project. It's not applicable when impacts to historical resources can be expected to occur, as in this case. These are called exceptions to the exemptions. In the letter we received today from the Glendale Historical Society, they provided what is called substantial evidence that they believe the property is a historical resource for the purposes of CEQA. The substantial evidence test applies to the lead agency's discretionary determination of whether or not this property is a historical resource. It means enough relevant information and reasonable inferences from this information that a fair argument can be made to support a conclusion, even though other conclusions may have been reached, such as the city's. Substantial evidence also must include facts, reasonable assumptions predicated on facts, and expert opinion supported by fact. It's in the California Code. So in looking at the city's words, I don't see that the city can argue that they have presented substantial evidence. The Glendale Historical Society, some of the neighbors talking, even the last caller talked about what can be considered substantial evidence provided in public comment letters. Unfortunately, the city may accidentally have abused its discretion in making this determination that the property is not historically significant, especially without any written record of an intensive evaluation. Because this property falls within this categorical exemption class, as described in our staff report, the lead agency needs to evaluate whether any exceptions to the exemptions apply. These exceptions to the exemptions, which I mentioned before, define circumstances that override or can negate the lead agency's ability to use a categorical exemption. In other words, if an exception applies, the project no longer qualifies for a categorical exemption, and the lead agency must proceed with completing CEQA review. The exceptions are described in Public Resources Code. I won't bore you with what they are, but one is cumulative effects. TGHS's letter mentioned other craftsman demolitions which haven't been looked at closely by the city. The cumulative effect of successive projects of the same type over time, which may be significant, and that the project may cause a substantial adverse change to a historical resource. So I will skip ahead. This project, it looks pretty clear, may cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of a historical resource, whether it's just that property or if the neighborhood is a historic district, which it looks reasonably obvious to be a historic district. Because these exceptions pertain to this project, the lead agency can't use the categorical exemption and needs to proceed to CEQA environmental review that would focus on the historical resource impacts. The fact that this proposed extremely ornate two-story design with front-facing garages right at the street front does not comply with the stated principles in the adopted design guidelines, at this point is secondary to me to the city's serious error regarding historic significance and proper CEQA review for this project. If anyone wants to ask me questions, I hope I can answer them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Board Member Smith. Mr. Minas, what are your thoughts on the project?
I'm not too familiar with all the requirements or definitions of the historically significant of a structure, but I can tell you that I agree with the staff reporting that the mass of this structure is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Again, as an engineer, I know that the useful life of a wood frame structure, they say it's 50 years, but this is like almost 100-year-old house. And the codes and the safety of construction, starting from the foundation to the framing, to the shear walls and everything else, has significantly changed since 100 years ago. And the buildings that are constructed today are much safer with respect to the earthquakes and other types of unexpected loading conditions And of course, I know that many houses, old houses, have very small closets and moving areas. And today people have more dresses. They don't have only two pairs of shoes. They've got 20 pairs of shoes. They need larger closets and all that. And I want to express my opinion with respect to recycling of the older houses without really touching the historic significance of a property. Now, having said that, I agree totally that in this block there are no two-story buildings, and the mass above grade of this project is just overwhelming with compared to the rest of the houses on the block. So I just moved to agree with the staff recommendation that the project needs to be redesigned to maybe reduce the height. A lot of complaints were made about the height of the building, exceeding, coming close to almost 30 feet. Sometimes the architects can be creative and sink the lower portion of or lower floor of the building below grade, so that what's exposed from the street will be, no more than 1 story or maybe 1.5 stories high. But that is something that needs to be discussed with the planning staff and the designer, whether they're willing to do that. That is my position and opinion with respect to this project.
Thank you, Mr. Minas. I concur with the board members, at least, on the incompatibility of the design. I don't really see any merits of this specific design that marry themselves or nestle themselves or even in one way or form relate to the surrounding context. This is a wide lot. It's a big lot. It's a nice flat lot to work with, and there's a lot of land within this lot to design within. This design as proposed is extremely massive. Not so much of its square footage and not so much because of its height, really because of its vertical attributes. I think if you just look at its square footage or start looking at numbers, one wouldn't call it a mansion or a McMansion or even monumental. However, when you start to really assess the rendering and the elevations without even looking at the context, you get a very different viewpoint. And I think once you end up assessing it within the context of this block, that gets amplified that much more. If it was in a nondescript area that didn't have an architectural style or some sort of a compatibility or some sort of a common compatibility within the neighbors, and this was just proposed, juxtaposed to a whole bunch of new development that might have occurred in the 90s without any DRB approval, I think it still would look massive. But when you couple it with this specific site, with these specific parameters, I think it becomes overbearing. I do agree with the callers in that it can certainly be toned down. But by us, I think reducing the height a foot or two will not take away from the massiveness of this design because of its use of dormers, because of its high attic space, because of its emphasis of the entry. And so I think this is one of those instances where I would just say return for redesign and really keep it general based on staff's comments as well. Because if we really got into it, there's just a lot of comments to be made, and we could be here putting a list of 20 conditions together. And so those would be my thoughts. Now, if the applicant was absolutely willing to work with staff by going through such an intensive, long list of conditions, and if the board members thought that was a good idea as well, we could entertain putting that together, but in the spirit of time, I really don't get the feeling that the applicant is going to be open to even that suggestion or that thought. And depending on how this goes, I may just have the applicant chime in to see what his take is or her take is on that. But I myself am not, I'm leaning towards, as I said, a return for redesign. So those would be my thoughts.
Well, with that, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we return the project for redesign with the staff's listed conditions. I think that those are well considered, and I'd be perfectly happy to send it back for redesign with those listed.
And Mr. Welch, you had mentioned possibly adding a condition about retaining at least part of the existing house or incorporating it into the design. Is that...
I certainly believe that they should consider that. And if that's applicable as a condition at this stage, then I would like to recommend that they consider that.
Yeah. I know there hasn't, well, is there a second for that motion?
I second it.
All right. So in terms of a roll call, there was a motion to return for redesign by Board Member Welch and a second by Board Member Minas.
And one moment, just to be clear,
Yes.
that extra item that Ms. Board Member Welsh added was a consideration.
Yes, I have it as a consideration.
So with the conditions listed in the Design Review Board staff report and the additional consideration made by Board Member Welsh, roll call, Board Member Smith?
Nay.
Yes, I'm sorry, that was a nay? Is that, forgive me,
Yes.
I didn't know if that was a nay or a no, or yay. So a nay, that is a no. Board Member Welsh?
Yes.
Board Member Minas?
Yes.
And a Chair Simonian.
Yes.
So the motion passes to return for redesign 3-1. Okay, there are no other announcements or items on the agenda.
Do we have a motion?
Chair,
to- Yes?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
I second that. We're supposed to have a second on that. Yeah.
Thank you.